Welcome into Up in the Rafters, a podcast brought to you by Inside Carolina this college basketball season. I'm Taylor Vippolis hosting this. And as always, joining me, he's a national champion, a Final Four's most outstanding player, Carolina basketball legend, a guy who knows a thing or two about what it takes to get it done in March, Joel Berry. Joel, it's been a minute since we talked before the ACC tournament. A lot to get to. I have to start here. What was your reaction to not only finding out that on Selection Sunday, Carolina was in the field of 68, but the fallout from that decision from the national media and the outrage that kind of followed that?
Man, I just thought it was crazy, man. I thought it was crazy. Like, this is where I have a problem with all of the net stuff. And because basketball and sports in general, there are a lot of people out there who already think they know every single thing under the sun. And then now you add this net thing. Now you got politicians out here getting up on stands talking about it's criminal. Bro, this is sports we're talking about. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? That was my reaction. When I saw that, I'm like, okay, come on now. We're going too far. And then to add on to it, then your coach says, I'll see you later. I'm going to Indiana. That's what I've been doing. I've been speechless and just laughing at all of it.
West Virginia fans, they were too busy complaining about not getting into the tournament. They didn't realize that their coach was leaving in the middle of the night. He packed his bags and said, "Hey, this is y'all's problem now."
I mean, bro, he was out of there. I mean, I think that is so funny. The one thing you can put on that is that SpongeBob meme where you do 24 hours later, the coach is out of there on a jet. Bro, nothing funnier than that. Nothing funnier than that.
It was funny to see the reaction from the national media when Carolina gets into the tournament because, yes, Carolina's on the bubble, and you can make arguments for any team on the bubble. Like if the committee came out and was like, hey, Carolina's not in the tournament, the only person Carolina really has to blame is what they put on tape and what they did this season, because you're going to be judged off the wins and losses. So if you told me any of those bubble teams missed, I would understand. So it was funny for me to see the reaction from the national media where the first couple of guys, when the bracket comes out, says Carolina shouldn't got in the tournament. Okay. And then it felt like we were in a one-upping stage where John Fant is coming out and he's calling it a crime that Carolina got in. And John Rothstein says, hold on, guys, let me get in here, because he called it a miscarriage of justice, the biggest miscarriage of justice he's ever seen in college basketball. And there was a few times when they're talking, I felt like I was being gaslit with analytics, where I keep looking at the analytics and I'm like, Ken Pom says Carolina's 33. The net ranking says Carolina's 36. If you beat Carolina on a neutral court right now, it would be a quad 1 win. But if you beat West Virginia on a neutral court right now, it would be a quad 2 win. So I kept looking at the metrics and I was like, no, everything says that Carolina has just as good an argument as everybody else. But everybody from the national media was going like one up, to the point where I'm like, why are they talking about Carolina like we're the University of Phoenix or something?
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's like, stop looking at what everybody else, what the common person is looking at. Look at who Carolina played. And Brian Ayers brought this to my attention last night when we were texting. So 6 of the 13 quad 1 wins or games, they were against number 1 or 2 seeds. And then, which includes when Kansas was number 1, then they went and played at Louisville, they played at Kansas. And then, so 9 of those 13 games were like very quality teams. And then you look at like Auburn, Michigan State, Bama, Duke, Clemson, Louisville, all those teams are potential Final Four national championship contenders.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that Carolina doesn't deserve to get in? If there's anyone that I'm looking at, why not Oklahoma?
Yeah.
Oklahoma is a 9 seed. Louisville, who is 10th in the country, is an 8 seed. And Oklahoma finished 3 spots from the bottom in their league. They won 6 games in 3 months.
Did you see their conference record?
They're 6-12.
Yeah.
They won 6 games in 3 months. So why is Carolina getting the beating? I don't get it, bro.
That was the biggest thing for me, where I was like, I just couldn't understand where the outrage was coming from. And to be honest, if I'm putting their lenses on and trying to see where the outrage is coming from, it's almost solely because Bubba Cunningham's on the committee chair. Because if Bubba Cunningham's not on the committee chair, nobody is up in arms and screaming that Carolina's in the tournament, where they're looking up his bonuses and seeing how much he makes if Carolina makes the tournament. But I thought it was perfect, because that entire conversation from Selection Sunday leading up to the first 4 game on Tuesday night, a pretty short turnaround. Carolina beat San Diego State 95-68. We've said it a couple times. Sometimes the final score doesn't totally indicate what that game was. Carolina winning this one by 27 doesn't really tell the full story, or 28 doesn't really tell the full story of how bad this was. And the same people that came out after the game or during the game saying, like, one game doesn't justify Carolina getting into the tournament are the same ones that would have been dancing and celebrating through the street if San Diego State came out and beat them. So, let me help them. I know it's heavy. Let me help them move those goalposts around. Just an all-time bad day for the haters. What were your takeaways watching Carolina and San Diego State?
Yeah, it's just one of those days, man, where like you don't want to get on social media. You don't want to, if you were anyone that said anything, you didn't want to be in the spotlight at all. It was a bad day for a lot of people. And that's why it is, when you start looking at things, you can go ahead and criticize and say, I don't know if Carolina gets in, but to go to the extent that some of these people went to, it was crazy. And not only did they win, since we're talking about one-upping, I am going to say they blasted San Diego State. It wasn't even a game. They led for 25 seconds. After that, I was sitting on my couch with should have had a bourbon, because it was the most relaxed that I've been all season long. They got it was 40 at one point. So all I'm saying is that's why we have to let the statistics be, addition, but we can't let that be the vehicle driving all of the decisions. You look at the last 10 games, Carolina 8-2 in the last 10 games leading up to this. You look at more than that, you look at how they were playing. They just overall looked like a better team. And you could tell by the second Duke game, and then the game, yes, they were down by 24, but they came back and a free throw away from going into overtime. So we just got to stop using the statistics in the quad system as the end all be all. We got to keep looking at basketball and being able to see that, using the eye test. And that's what it was for me. But man, did they blast San Diego State in great fashion. And they look good on all facets. RJ Davis, who looked like the RJ Davis that we know. For me, I think it was more of just Carolina didn't have those same plays where they were beating themselves. Early in the game, they made a couple of bad passes. And through the course of the game, they had some bad turnovers. But otherwise, man, they just really had a solid all-around, just one of their best games, I think, all year long. It was very impressive to see.
And I have this stat from Brian Ives, actually. Best stat guy doing it right now. Over the last 5 NCAA tournaments, over the last 5+ NCAA tournaments, the ACC is 53-28. a 654 win percentage, the best of any conference. The Mountain West is 9-19, which includes San Diego State going to the Final Four.
Final Four, right?
Just 2 years ago.
So that makes up 6 of the games, right?
Yeah,
or 5 of them.
5, yeah.
So
Crazy.
what are we talking about here? This has me. I don't know if you can tell, but this had me on edge.
Yeah, it's something that's kind of been a consistent over the years where we're talking about, like right now, if the team that has the most gripe to be mad right now, I think, is Wake Forest, who finished 5th in the ACC.
Correct.
Because the ACC being a 4-bid league is crazy when you're talking about the SEC being a 14-bid league. And again, like if the metrics say Wake Forest isn't a tournament team or Carolina's a bubble team, maybe change the metrics, because when you put the ACC in the tournament, most of the time it's the ACC winning these games. And you saw a bit of that disrespect, and really where a lot of the doubt, I think, came from. Luckily, Carolina was in the first region that was revealed. But when you see Louisville, who finished a game behind Duke as an 8 seed, when the final AP poll before the NCAA tournament, they were AP number 10. Right. So you're saying they're an 8 seed. That means the committee thinks there's already at least 28 teams better than Louisville. Right. Who it's like they finished a game behind Duke in the ACC. One of the better teams.
It's just crazy. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. And that's why I think there has to be something that changes when you talk about November, December, locking in what your conference is going to be. Like Oklahoma only got in. Like my problem is like a Oklahoma, they get in, but they only got in because of the strength of their conference, not them actually being a solid team. Yes, they went undefeated in non-conference, but yet, so it's like you're locked into that, and it doesn't matter what you do in conference play. You only got to win a mediocre 6 games, and you lose double-digit games in conference. That's where I'm having a problem with the whole quad system, because it's now starting to overtake what college basketball is about. And most importantly, it's about having the eye test and being able to see quality teams and being able to give teams room to get better at the end of the season. Like you look at Carolina's 10 games, that's a huge chunk of the season that you've gotten better. And then you look at the teams that you've lost to, and they're at the top of the conference, except for Stanford. So that's where my problem is, and that's where I feel like things need to get a little better.
Yeah, with Oklahoma and Texas being 6-12 in conference play, conveniently, when people are in the national media talking about West Virginia, nobody mentions that West Virginia was a sub 500 team since January 1st, or the fact that they lost to 3-17 Colorado to kick off the Big 12 for them to lose their opening round. But getting back to this Carolina team, for the past couple of months, the team has heard they're on the bubble. Are they going to be in? Are they going to be out? And kind of having that pressure on them. Do you think Tuesday was as simple as watching a team that now has that weight off them to just kind of play freely, knowing, hey, we're in now and everything else is kind of house money?
Yeah, I believe so, man. I will say, for all the crap that they've been taking from the media, from everyone around the program, other than the families, their friends that have been there with them, man, I'm proud to say I'm happy. I'm happy for the guys, man. It's been a difficult season for them. Like, it hasn't been easy at all. Think about the amount of games that they've lost, and we've been talking about it all season. Them being right there. Imagine, like Taylor, all it takes is 2 or 3 games for them to go their way, and we're talking about a different season. And so for them to stick it out and get to this end of the season and really start coming together with all that they've had to go through, man, all you can do is tip your hats to the guys and say, like, they kept fighting, man. They kept fighting and they put themselves in this position. Like, that's where people are losing sight of is, yes, all of that happened in the past, but all you can do is like Coach Williams used to tell us, one of my favorite quotes is, you can't control the wind, but you can direct the sails. They directed their sail at the end of the season in the midst of all that they went through. And when things haven't panned out, like, I'm not bashing players, but Jalen Washington just didn't take that step that everybody thought he was going to take. Cade Tyson didn't come in and have the season that he wanted, or that the coaching staff wanted, or the fans. So look at all the adjustment that the coaching staff and the players had to make. And they still made something of the season, man. It's so impressive, and people just don't realize how hard it is to win on this level, especially in this environment. So, man, I'm happy for the team. I'm glad that they finally got in, or that they did get in and prove to the world that they are a quality team. And boy, did they put it on display yesterday. And I think it's, to your point, they're just playing with freedom. To be quite honest, you didn't even know you were going to make the tournament. All of a sudden, you get in, and it's right away. They're flying out to Dayton. They're like, they have nothing to lose. They have nothing to lose. And the further they keep going, the more that they're going to continue to prove to people that we can't just worry about the statistics. We have to look at teams being who they are, and also giving teams room to get better. Man, I'm so proud of the guys.
On the topic of the coaching staff and the preparation that kind of comes with that, what did you see from the game plan and what the coaching staff was able to do with that Sunday to Tuesday quick turnaround, and not really knowing who you're going to play, in terms of having this North Carolina team prepared and able to execute at the highest level?
Yeah, this part of the season, you always try to focus on what it is that you're doing, because the games are so quick and there's such a quick turnaround that if you start trying to dissect and trying to take away every single thing that another team is doing, there's not enough room and time to be able to make all of those adjustments. And I just remember Coach always harping to us, look, if we play hard, we play with intensity, we play with effort, defensively we lock in, we're going to be fine. But we're going to focus on our strengths. We're going to focus on what it is that we need to do and what we've been doing, more than we are focusing on what the other teams are doing. Because going into these games, you take away the best player, you make other players make plays. But you have to realize too, which is why this is the greatest time of the year, because these teams don't know anything about you either. And look at San Diego State. They thought they were going against Usain Bolt. Carolina ran them out of the gym. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know. They had no clue. And the head coach was lost. The players were lost. Seth shot down the lane so fast, I thought the TV glitched. That's the best part about this time, is that you get a chance to go. It's like non-conference. You play against other teams, which is awesome. You get into conference. You play against teams that know from first to third option. And now you're back in the stage where teams don't even know what your first option is. And that's what we saw.
Yeah, and with the coaching staff and with the team, I thought it was a huge response early in the game when the teams were kind of going back and forth, and Carolina turned the ball over on 4 of maybe their first 6 possessions. But I thought what kind of made the difference for Carolina, it felt like we talk about how you can control your effort, your attitude, your intensity. It felt like what Carolina was doing was saying, okay, we're turning the ball over right now. We're making a lot of careless passes. Those are going to be easy to erase once we kind of lock in. But if we step up on the defensive end and we really lock in there and make it tough for the San Diego State team, that comes in with the reputation of having a much better defense than they do offense, then hey, let's make it difficult for them for some of these late possessions where I think they had 2 shot clock violations on almost back-to-back possessions where it felt like the defense was giving life to North Carolina's offense.
Yeah, they locked in defensively, man. I truly think that having some of these big time games at the end of the season had them playing really well defensively. And one of the other things that I noticed too is that the coaches have allowed Elliot Cadeau to play off the ball a little bit more and have RJ bring it up. And I think that has made a difference for Elliot Cadeau because now instead of going again, him being the catalyst, he's able to kind of be on the receiving end a little bit and still use that playmaking and having RJ, initiate the offense sometimes. And that's why I say you got to look at how the team has improved. So overall, I just think the defense was awesome. And I think guys are starting to understand their roles and kind of what has caused them some problems in the past. And now they're learning what those are and executing to make it better.
Before we take a break, actually, you hit on one of the questions that we had coming up. It was from E. Coltrane, UNC, and they asked what made Elliot Cadeau so fantastic in this game, where Elliot Cadeau scores 9 points, 4 of 5 from the field, 12 assists to 2 turnovers, a 6-to-1 turnover assist to turnover ratio, 1 for 1 for 3. Between this game and the last game against Duke, Elliot Cadeau, he's kind of developed into a shooter all of a sudden.
Hey, man, sometimes when you get into a good rhythm, things change up a little bit, man. That ball starts going in the basket for you. But I just think I noticed that a little bit, seeing RJ bring up the ball a little bit more, seeing Elliot coming off of those down screen actions and then being able to play make from there. And I just think when you get a playmaker moving and you get the defense shifting, when he's attacking, he's so fast, man, that he's right up on you before you know it. But he goes into the paint with the option of knowing that he's passing. And I just thought a lot of those passes yesterday caught San Diego off guard. But like Ben Allen Lubin, we saw a lot of those passes early in the season that he wasn't catching. And he was finishing those, whether it be layup or dunk. So, man, just very impressive. And I think also the coaching staff too can kind of see when Elliot is getting a little frustrated. And they have no problem with taking him out of the game and letting him get a rest, but then he's right back in. That's all about knowing your players. And hey, look, it takes some time. It takes some time, but I think that's why the team has been playing so much better is the coaches, and not only the coaches, but the players also too know what has been, been a thorn in their side and what's been beating them in those losses.
The rhythm is helping Cadeau, but I also think teams playing, 5 to 10 feet off him might be helping him on those shots where I'm imagining you out there shooting and people are giving you uncontested jumpers. Like, I wish you would.
It's warm up. You could take your time and go through your motion a little bit, still have a little pace to it so you don't short arm it. But yes, go ahead and sag off. But then as soon as you get up on me, boom.
If they sagged off you, where we're talking about RJ Davis in the ACC scoring records, that's where I think you would have been.
Oh my gosh! And if it wasn't the scoring record, if I was missing them, I was gonna have high volume for sure.
Quick break so we can remind everybody about our friends over at Johnny T-Shirt. If you're going to be in Chapel Hill, you can visit Johnny T-Shirt on Franklin Street. And if not, no worries. You can go online to johnnytshirt.com. They have everything that the Carolina fan could possibly want: the hats, the T-shirts, the jerseys, you name it, they've got it. Shop Carolina basketball gear now since it's tournament time. It's baseball season. They've got a bunch of great baseball apparel. Great people, great customer service. And don't forget, Inside Carolina premium subscribers save 10% off their orders. All right, Joel, to wrap it up, we have a couple questions from the fans. We put it out on Instagram every day that we're recording these, and appreciate everybody who always reaches out and leaves a bunch of questions. The first question comes from Ben T 2016, and he asked, how difficult would you imagine it is for Ian Jackson as a high-level athlete during the ACC tournament and NCAA tournament to be fasting because of Ramadan and the effects that could have as an athlete trying to perform?
Yeah, that's hard, man. It's difficult. I've never done it myself, but I can only imagine. I've been in workouts where you wake up early in the morning, and they're so early that you just don't have the desire to eat, and then you get halfway through the workout and you're spent. And so I can just I can only imagine, man. But that's hats off to him for pushing through, and still getting out on the court and doing what he does. So I can only feel for him, but very, very impressive for him to do that.
Yeah, and you've kind of seen a dip in performance from him, and it could very well correlate to the fact that this is now something that he's trying to adjust to during this period. And you mentioned, those early morning workouts when you can't get something to eat and you're trying to get through the workout. At least in those situations, you could have some water.
You can have some water. He
Yeah.
can't have anything.
Yeah.
I could only imagine sitting coming out of a timeout, and I'm looking at my teammates just gulping water. Bro, I could, man.
Yeah,
that's why I said it's impressive.
For those fasting, food can't be consumed during the day. Meals can be taken with some restrictions before dawn. However, not even water can be had during the day. I can't imagine what it's like in that huddle when the trainer, maybe the trainer forgets and tries to hand you that water bottle. I think it's something where Coach Davis has to go to the trainer beforehand and be like, "Hey, in the timeouts, don't even make eye contact with him."
Can he lick his sweat? I mean,
I don't know.
Bro, I'll be trying something. Bro.
It's a battle. And luckily for Carolina in the game against San Diego State, tip-off was, 9 p.m. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see how they handle it with a tip-off on Friday against Ole Miss. All right, let's take a quick break so I can remind everybody about our friends over at Congruity. Congruity is the leading provider for Tar Heel business owners, payroll, HR, and employee benefit needs. Inside Carolina listeners can get a free payroll and HR assessment by emailing Matt at Congruity. Email is matt@congruityhr.com. That email again is matt@congruityhr.com. All right, let's get back to the episode. The next question comes from Cam01, and he asked, when the bracket came out, what did you think of UNC's region?
Yeah, I mean, you look at it initially, they're like the whole region itself is kind of tough. You got Michigan State in there, you got Iowa State, you got Auburn. We already talked about Louisville being number 10 in the country and up getting the 8th seed. But if you look at if you break it down and look at Carolina in the bottom half of the region, I think it's pretty favorable, man. You talk about Ole Miss, Ole Miss, their tallest guy is 6'9". So we match up really well with them, and they got guards that can go. Their bigs can step out on the perimeter. But it's like it's kind of like us. So I just think it's a favorable matchup. We talked about Iowa State being a little banged up. Keyshawn Gilbert is out. And even if he decides to play, I don't know if that's something that if he is going to, but they're banged up. So, and he's their leading scorer. And Michigan State's about the only one, but Carolina played them really well at the beginning of the season. I know it's a little bit different, but just in the bottom half, I thought it was I was like, hey, these are winnable games.
Yeah, Gilbert is out, and then Lipsy, their like number 2, is the one who's questionable for that first round game. So in terms of who Carolina would play in the round of 32, it's about as favorable a matchup as you can expect as an 11 seed. And in that Ole Miss matchup, you kind of talked about earlier when it comes to the SEC, it's a very top heavy league, and a lot of the teams in the SEC at the top are doing a lot of the heavy lifting. So where if one of those teams has an off night and a team like Ole Miss can kind of catch them off, but Chris Beard, AP National Coach of the Year at Texas Tech, has taken a team to the final. What he's done at a school like Ole Miss, who you never really think of Ole Miss basketball outside of like the Marshall Henderson teams.
Yeah, Marshall. Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't really think of Ole Miss as a powerhouse basketball team. But Carolina, in terms of, again, the 6-11 matchup, if you're looking at other 6 seeds, you'd probably want Ole Miss as your opponent. And I have a stat: over the past 10 tournaments, 11 seeds have a winning record against the 6 seeds. And then since they started the first 4, a team that's played in the first 4 has made it to the round of 32 every year except for 2019. So
yeah,
if somebody has to do it, you're Carolina. You're looking around and you're like, hey, it might as well be us. So I think the path of Ole Miss, Iowa State, and then a team that you matched up very well with in Maui, in Michigan State, to get to the Elite 8. If going into the tournament, you're telling me Carolina might not even make it, you can't ask for much more in terms of a draw. So we will see how that plays out. Carolina kind of has to take – we're allowed to look ahead to Iowa State and the Michigan States. Carolina kind of has to put the blinders on, the one game at a time. It's this Friday, a 4:05 tip-off on TNT against Ole Miss. We will be back next week to break it all down. Maybe we'll have a game Sunday to talk about too. So we will see. Joel, man, appreciate the time as always, and appreciate everybody watching and listening.
Yes, sir. Go Heels.